Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was a Power Ranger. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. Men are not born equal. That was the hard truth Izuku Midoriya learned at the tender age of 4. It was a lesson taught not by a textbook, but by the cold, clinical light of a doctor's office and the pitying glance of a man who looked at an X-ray of a foot and saw a life sentence of mediocrity. In a superhuman society, where 80% of the population possessed some uncanny ability called a quirk, humanity had evolved into something grand, chaotic, and loud. There were men who could breathe fire, women who could alter gravity, and children who could spin webs from their fingertips. The world had become a comic book brought to life. And then there was Izuku. He was the remaining 20%. The leftovers. The evolutionary cul-de-sacs. Quirkless. For 10 years, that word had been etched into his skin like a brand. It dictated where he walked in the hallways, against the lockers, how he spoke, quietly, and how he dreamed, desperately. Musudafu Junior High was particularly cruel on days when the sun was shining. The brightness of the day seemed to highlight the shadows Izuku tried to hide in. The teacher, a man with the weary disposition of someone merely counting the days until retirement, slapped a stack of papers onto his podium. "Since you're all third years, it's time to think seriously about your future," he announced, his voice devoid of actual concern. "I would hand out these career aptitude forms, but—" He paused, a smirk twitching beneath his mustache. "I assume you all want to be heroes," the class exploded. It was a cacophony of mutant abilities triggering at once. Hands turned into rocks, eyes extended on stalks, and minor telekinesis sent pencils floating. It was a display of power, a peacocking ritual of adolescents convinced of their own invincibility. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks," the teacher said, waving a hand to disperse the minor smoke cloud rising from the back row. "But remember, using your powers in school is against regulations." "Hey, teach!" The voice cut through the noise like a whip crack. Katsuki Bakugo lounged with his feet on his desk, the very image of arrogant royalty. "Don't lump me in with these extras. They'll be lucky to end up as sidekicks to some busted D-lister. I'm the real deal." The class erupted in jeers, but Bakugo merely scoffed, small explosions popping in his palms like firecrackers. "I'm going for the top. I've already aced the mock tests. I'm the only one here with a shot at UA High. UA. The Valhalla of heroics. The training ground of all might. It was the summit of the mountain everyone was trying to climb." "Oh," the teacher muttered, looking at his clipboard. "That's right. Midoriya wants to go to UA too, doesn't he?" The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating, and absolute. Then came the laughter. It wasn't the warm laughter of a shared joke. It was the sharp, jagged laughter of ridicule. "Midoriya? No way! You can't get into the hero course just by studying." They ripped the rule about quirkless students. But that doesn't mean they actually let them in. Izuku shrank into his seat, his face burning. There's no rule against it," he stammered, his voice trembling. "It's just, there's never been a precedent." Boom! Bakugo's palms slammed onto Izuku's desk, the explosion singing the wood and sending Izuku scrambling backward, falling out of his chair. "Precedent?" Bakugo loomed over him, smoke curling from his fingers. His red eyes were narrowed, filled with a complex mix of hatred and superiority. "Forget precedent, Deku. You're worse than these rejects. You're quirkless. You're nothing. You think you can rub shoulders with me? No! Wait, Kaken!" Izuku scrabbled against the wall, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. "I'm not trying to compete with you. It's been my dream since I was little. I have to try." "Try?" Bakugo sneered. "Try to do what? Die in the entrance exam? What can you do, Deku? Throw a notebook at a villain?" The class eventually settled, but the air remained thick with hostility. When the final bell rang, Izuku moved quickly, shoving his hero analysis for the future number 13 into his bag. He needed to get out. He needed to. Bakugo snatched the notebook before Izuku could zip the bag. "We're not done," Bakugo said. He held up the notebook, reading the title. "Hero Analysis? You really are delusional. Give it back, Kaken." Bakugo didn't answer. Instead, he clapped his hands around the notebook. An explosion muffled by the paper ripped through the spine. Smoke poured out. With a casual flick of his wrist, Bakugo tossed the charred remains out the open window. Most top-tier heroes have stories about their school days, Bakugo said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. I want my origin story to be perfect. The only student from this dump to make it to UA. So, don't apply, Deku. He placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. It was hot. If you really want to be a hero that badly, there's a quick way to do it. Take a swan dive off the roof and pray for a quirk in your next life. The words hung in the air, toxic and heavy. Izuku stood frozen, trembling with an anger he had no way to express. He turned to look at Bakugo, but the blonde was already walking out, his lackeys laughing in his wake. Izuku didn't say anything. He couldn't. He just walked over to the window and looked down. His notebook was floating in the koi pond, fish nibbling at the burnt edges. Stupid, Izuku whispered to himself, his voice cracking. If I actually jumped, that would be instigation of suicide. Think before you speak, idiot. He trudged down to the courtyard, retrieving the soggy book. The ink was running, blurring his drawings of Kamiri Woods and Empty Lady. It felt fitting. His dreams were dissolving just like the ink. The walk home was a blur of gray concrete and self-pity. Izuku took the long way, avoiding the main streets where he might run into classmates. He found himself walking under a highway underpass, the shadows providing a meager comfort. I can't let them get to me, he muttered, clutching the damp notebook to his chest. He started to march, forcing a rhythm into his steps. I just have to work harder. I have to analyze more. If I don't have power, I need data. A sound behind him stopped him cold. It was a wet, squelching noise. Like mud sliding over tile. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. A gurgling voice hissed. Izuku turned. Rising from the sewer grate was a nightmare made of sludge. It was a towering mass of viscous, green-brown fluid, with two manic eyes floating in the muck. It surged forward, faster than anything that size had a right to move. No, the sludge hit him like a tidal wave. It forced its way into his mouth, his nose, filling his ears. It tasted like rot and old oil. Don't struggle, kid, the villain whispered, the voice vibrating directly into Izuku's skull. I just need to hide inside you for a bit. It'll only hurt for about 45 seconds. Then it'll all be over. I can't breathe. Izuku clawed at the fluid, but his fingers just passed through it. He was drowning on dry land. His vision began to spot with white light. Is this it? Is this how I die? No hero work. No UA. Just fertilizer for a sewer villain? You're a real lifesaver, the villain laughed. Literally. Izuku's strength faded. His arms went limp. The darkness of the tunnel seemed to close in, merging with the blackness creeping into his mind. Help me, someone! Clang! The manhole cover flew into the air, spinning like a tossed coin. Have no fear! The voice boomed, reverberating off the concrete walls, powerful enough to rattle Izuku's teeth even through the sludge. Why? A figure stood at the tunnel entrance. He was enormous, a mountain of muscle casting a shadow that swallowed the villain whole. He wore a white t-shirt and cargo pants, holding a bag of groceries, yet he looked like a god of war. Because I am here, the villain shrieked, lashing out with a tendril of muck. All Might? The hero didn't flinch. He ducked under the attack, moving with a speed that defied his mass. Texas. He pulled his fist back. The air pressure in the tunnel changed instantly. Smash! The punch didn't even connect physically. The sheer wind pressure generated by the blow hit the villain like a cannonball. The sludge was blown apart, splattering against the walls and ceiling in a chaotic spray. Izuku was released. He hit the ground, gasping, coughing up fluid, his lungs burning as they welcomed the sweet, cool air. Holy! Izuku wheezed, wiping his eyes. He looked up. All Might stood there, steaming slightly. He was gathering the scattered pieces of the villain into 2 empty soda bottles he produced from his grocery bag. Apologies, young man. All Might said, his signature smile blindingly bright. I got a little lost in the sewer system. Not my usual beat. But we've secured the evildoer. Izuku scrambled to his feet, ignoring the trembling in his legs. It was him. It was really him. The symbol of peace. The man Izuku had watched on YouTube a million times. All Might. I have an autograph. Izuku fumbled for his notebook. He opened it to a dry page, only to find All Might's signature already scrawled across 2 pages in bold, sweeping marker strokes. He already did it. Well, I must be off, All Might announced, stretching his legs. Pro work is never done. Stay out of trouble. Wait. Izuku reached out. I have to ask you something. No time. All Might crouched, energy coiling in his legs. It's important. All Might jumped. The force of the leap sent dust billowing outward. But he didn't go alone. Izuku, in a moment of pure, panicked instinct, had latched onto the hero's leg. Hey! Hey, kid! Let go! All Might yelled, looking down as the city rapidly shrank beneath them. I love my fans, but this is excessive. If I let go now, I'll die. Izuku screamed, his face flapping in the G-force. Oh. Good point. They landed on a rooftop of a nondescript office building. Izuku collapsed, his legs jelly. My whole life flashed before my eyes. That was dangerous, All Might scolded, though his voice sounded strained. He coughed, a small spray of blood escaping his lips. I really must go. Wait. Please. Izuku stood up, clutching his chest. I have to know. Can someone without a quirk be a hero like you? All Might froze. The steam rising from his body intensified. I've always been quirkless, Izuku continued, staring at the ground. Everyone says I can't do it. But I want to save people. I want to smile and say everything is fine. So, can I? He looked up, desperate for validation. But All Might was gone. In his place stood a skeletal man. He was emaciated, with sunken eyes and sharp, angular limbs. He was drowning in the oversized white t-shirt. What? An imposter? Izuku shrieked. No, the man sighed, blood trickling from his chin. He sat down heavily on a ventilation unit. Just the reality. For the next 5 minutes, Izuku's world shattered. All Might lifted his shirt to reveal a scar that looked like a spiderweb of purple agony covering his entire left side. Destroyed respiratory system, missing stomach. A time limit that was shrinking every day. I smiled to trick the fear inside me, All Might said softly. And to trick the world. The symbol cannot be seen as weak. He looked at Izuku with eyes that were kind, but devastatingly honest. Pros are always risking their lives. Without power, can you be a hero? No, I don't think you can. The words hit Izuku harder than the sludge villain had. If you want to help, be a police officer, All Might suggested, standing up and walking toward the roof access door. They get mocked, but it's a fine profession. It's good to dream, kid, but you have to be realistic. The door clicked shut. Izuku was alone. He stood there for a long time, the wind whipping his hair. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and angry orange. Realistic, Izuku whispered. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. Not from fear, but from a hollowness that felt vast and infinite. The greatest hero in the world had confirmed what Bakugo, his teachers, and the doctor had said. He was nothing. Izuku turned to leave, his feet dragging. As he passed the spot where All Might had transformed, something caught the light. It wasn't a piece of trash. It was lying near the ventilation unit, likely having fallen out of All Might's pocket when he deflated. Izuku knelt and picked it up. It was a coin, but it wasn't yen. It was heavy, thicker than any currency he'd ever seen, and cold to the touch. It was gold, but tarnished with an age that felt geologic. On the face of the coin was a relief carving of a beast, a reptile with a distinctive, angular snout and teeth. A dragon? A dinosaur? He turned it over. The back was smooth, save for 3 strange symbols arranged in a triangle. Did All Might drop this? Is it a lucky charm? Izuku squeezed the coin. He gasped and dropped it. The coin didn't clatter. It hit the roof with a dull thud, but the sound was wrong. It sounded like a heavy synthesizer note. What was that? He reached out tentatively. As his fingers brushed the gold, he felt it again. A vibration. It wasn't shaking physically. It was vibrating in his bones. It felt like static electricity, but deeper. It felt like a connection. Pick it up, a sensation urged. Not a voice. A feeling. Like gravity shifting sideways. Izuku grabbed the coin and shoved it into his pocket. He needed to find All Might and give it back. Maybe he was still in the building. He ran to the stairwell. By the time Izuku reached the street, All Might was long gone. And worse, Izuku's distraction had led him toward the Tatooine shopping district. Smoke was rising in a black pillar against the twilight sky. Sirens wailed. The crowd was thick, a wall of people craning their necks to see the disaster. Izuku tried to push through, intending to cross the street and go home, but the chatter stopped him. It's a villain! He grabbed a kid. Where are the heroes? Izuku peered through a gap in the crowd. His blood ran cold. The alleyway was an inferno. Explosions rocked the narrow street, shattering windows. And in the center of the flames, writhing and laughing, was the sludge villain. How? Izuku breathed. All Might caught him, unless. His hand went to his pocket. The bottles. When he had grabbed All Might's leg, the hero must have dropped the bottles. This is my fault. Guilt, heavy and nauseating, crashed into him. Why aren't they doing anything? A bystander yelled. Izuku looked at the police line. Death Arms, the punching hero, was standing back, shielding his face from the heat. I can't get close. The explosions are too erratic. Kamui Woods was useless. The fire would incinerate his wooden limbs. Empty Lady couldn't grow giant in such a narrow street without crushing civilians. They were waiting. Waiting for someone with the right quirk. Meanwhile, the boy in the sludge was suffocating. Through the flames and the translucent muck, Izuku saw a pair of eyes. Red eyes. Filled with terror. Kaken. Bakugo was thrashing, firing explosions wildly, but they only fed the fire. The sludge was forcing its way down his throat. He's going to die. Because of me. Because I was weak. Because I distracted All Might. Izuku's legs began to move. He didn't make a conscious decision. There was no strategy. There was just the image of Bakugo's terrified eyes and the overwhelming need to wipe that look off his face. Hey! Kid! Get back here! Death Arms shouted. Izuku ducked under the police tape. He sprinted toward the inferno. The heat hit him like a physical blow, singing his eyebrows, drying his eyes instantly. You again? The sludge villain roared, looking up. I'll kill you this time. Izuku had no plan. He had his backpack. He swung it by the strap, hurling it with all his might. The bag flew true, the zipper striking the villain in the eye. Gah! The fluid recoiled. Izuku clawed at the sludge covering Bakugo's mouth. Kaken! Deku? Bakugo gasped, coughing smoke. What the hell are you doing here? My legs moved on their own. Izuku screamed, tears evaporating on his cheeks from the heat. I couldn't just watch you die. Get off! The villain recovered, surging upward. A massive tendril of sludge raised up like a hammer, hardened for a killing blow. I'm done playing with you pests. Izuku looked up. Death was coming down. He squeezed his eyes shut. I'm sorry, Mom. In his pocket, the coin grew hot. It wasn't the heat of the fire. It was a clean, electronic heat. A surge of energy shot from his hip, racing through his nervous system. It felt like sticking a fork into a socket, but instead of pain, there was clarity. A sound pierced the roar of the fire. Beep bop bop. Time seemed to slow. The air around Izuku shimmered, distorting like heat haze, but colored with jagged streaks of emerald lightning. Grid connection established. The words weren't spoken. They were downloaded into his brain. Izuku's eyes snapped open. The world looked different. The fire wasn't just orange. He could see the thermal gradients. He could see the structural stress points of the sludge. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew what to do. He threw his hands up in a crossguard just as the sludge hammer slammed down. Boom! The ground beneath Izuku cracked, spiderwebbing outward for 3 meters. The crowd gasped. Death Arms dropped his jaw. Izuku wasn't flattened. Covering his forearms were gauntlets. White, glossy, diamond-shaped diamonds patterned along the cuffs. Green spandex. No, something stronger, something that hummed with power, covered his arms. The energy surged. It crawled up his shoulders, weaving matter out of light. A white chest piece with a gold diamond in the center formed over his torso. A belt with a holster materialized. "What is this?" Izuku gasped, his voice sounding synthesized, amplified. The energy completed its circuit. A helmet manifested in a flash of green light, a sleek, aerodynamic design with a silver mouthpiece and a black visor shaped like the roar of a dragon. The Green Ranger stood in the fire. The sludge villain pulled back his tendril, confused. "What? Another hero? A late arrival?" Izuku looked at his hands. He felt heavy. But strong. Incredibly strong. The fear was still there, buried deep, but the suit held it back, encasing him in a shell of absolute confidence. "I don't know," Izuku said. He looked at Bakugo, who was staring at him with wide, disbelief-filled eyes. "Hang on." Izuku grabbed the sludge trapping Bakugo. He didn't pull. He squeezed. Green energy flared from his fingertips. The suit amplified his grip's strength 100-fold. "Let him go," Izuku ripped. With a sound like tearing canvas, he tore the sludge apart. Bakugo fell forward, coughing. "You little brat!" The villain shrieked, reforming his mass into a dozen spears. "Die!" Izuku spun around. He didn't have a quirk. He didn't have one for all. But suddenly, he knew martial arts he had never practiced. The grid was guiding his limbs, correcting his stance. He deflected the first spear with a forearm block that rang like a church bell. He ducked the second weapon, his mind urged. Summon it. He reached toward his left hip. There was a holster there. He gripped the handle of a dagger that hadn't existed seconds ago. He drew it. The dragon dagger. Gold and black, gleaming in the firelight. He didn't play it like a flute. He didn't know why he thought that, but he felt the energy stored within the blade. "Back off." Izuku slashed the air. He didn't touch the villain. But a wave of green energy, shaped like a crescent arc, flew from the blade. It hit the sludge mass with the force of a truck. Splat. The villain was vaporized, not killed, but scattered. Every drop of liquid was blown backward, plastering the walls of the buildings, extinguishing the fires in the immediate vicinity with the force of the wind. Silence fell over the street. The fire truck sirens seemed distant. Izuku stood there, the dragon dagger held loosely in his hand. The suit hummed, a low, constant thrum of power. "What the hell was that?" Bakugo rasped from the ground. Izuku turned to look at him. The visor hid his expression, but Bakugo flinched. The mask was impassive, intimidating. Then, the energy wavered. Warning, connection unstable. Host body critical. The green light flickered. The helmet dissolved into pixels of green light. Then the chest piece. Then the gauntlets. In a second, Izuku was just Izuku again. Standing in his middle school uniform, soot-stained and trembling, his knees gave out. He collapsed forward. Midoriya! It wasn't Bakugo who caught him. It was a blur of blue and beige. All Might had arrived. But he was too late to save the day, and just in time to catch the boy who did. All Might held the unconscious boy, looking at the scattering of green sparks fading into the air. He looked at the crowd, who were beginning to murmur and point. "Is that the quirkless kid? Did he just manifest? That wasn't a normal quirk. That looked like tech." All Might looked down at Izuku's pocket. The ancient coin was glowing faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that All Might recognized from legends whispered by his predecessor. "Young Midoriya," All Might whispered, shielding the boy from the cameras. "What have you found?" 2 hours later, the police station was loud. Heroes were giving statements. The press was outside, clamoring for a shot of the mystery emerald hero. Izuku sat in a private interrogation room, wrapped in a blanket. He held a cup of warm tea, staring into the brown liquid. The door opened. Tsukachi, the detective, walked in, looking tired. But behind him was All Might. Not the skeleton, but the hero form, though he was hunched slightly to fit through the door. "All Might." Izuku started to stand up. "Sit, young man," All Might said, his voice gentle. He pulled up a reinforced chair and sat opposite Izuku. Tsukachi closed the door and locked it. "I talked to the press," All Might said. I told them it was a support item malfunction that luckily backfired in a positive way. We kept your name out of it for now. Support item? Izuku blinked. But I don't. We know, Tsukachi said. He placed a plastic bag on the table. Inside was the coin. We found this in your pocket. It's registering radiation levels we've never seen before. Not dangerous, but unknown. All Might leaned forward. Young Midoriya. You asked me on the roof if a quirkless person could be a hero. I told you no. Izuku gripped his cup tighter. I know. I'm sorry I acted recklessly. You acted, All Might interrupted. When the pros hesitated. When I hesitated because of my limit. You moved. You saved young Bakugo. All Might placed a massive hand on the table. I was wrong to judge you based on your biology. However, what happened out there, that was not a quirk, was it? Izuku shook his head slowly. No. When I touched the coin, I heard a sound. And then, when I ran in, it felt like someone turned on a light switch in my head. A suit appeared. I knew how to fight. It wasn't me, but it was me. All Might sighed, a long, heavy exhale. Steam poured off him, and in a puff of smoke, he reverted to his skeletal form. Tsukachi didn't blink. He clearly knew the secret. This coin, All Might said, picking up the bag. I found it on an excavation in the desert 2 years ago. I kept it as a good luck charm. I didn't know it was active. What is it? Izuku asked. It is a link to the morphin grid, All Might said. Izuku stared. The what? It's a theory, Tsukachi interjected. Theoretical physics. An extra-dimensional energy field that connects all life forces in the universe. Scientists thought it was a myth. A cosmic fairy tale. It is real, All Might said solemnly. Before quirks, before the glowing baby in China, there were legends of warriors who drew power from this grid. Rangers. Protectors of the balance. All Might looked at Izuku intensely. This coin didn't react to me. I've carried it for 2 years. Nothing. But you? You touched it for 10 seconds and initiated a morph. Why me? Izuku whispered. Perhaps because your vessel is empty, All Might mused. I am full of one for all. My cup runneth over. But you are a blank slate. You have no quirk to interfere with the connection. All Might stood up. He walked over to Izuku and placed a hand on his shoulder. I am looking for a successor, Midoriya. I thought I needed to pass on my power, one for all. But perhaps the universe has a different plan for you. He took the coin out of the bag. He held it out to Izuku. This power is dangerous. It is ancient. It is not a quirk that you can train at a gym. It connects you to something vast. If you accept this, you won't just be a hero. You will be something else. Something we haven't seen in millennia. Izuku looked at the coin. The golden dragon gleamed under the fluorescent lights. He thought of Bakugo's face. He thought of the feeling of the suit, the strength, the certainty. He thought of the years of being called Deku. Can I save people with it? Izuku asked. I believe you can, All Might smiled. Izuku reached out. His fingers brushed the cold metal. The vibration returned, welcoming him home. I'll do it, Izuku said, his eyes hardening with determination. I'll take the power. All Might grinned, giving a thumbs up. Excellent. But first, you need to build some muscle, kid. That suit almost crushed your ribcage. Meet me at Dagoba Municipal Beach tomorrow at 6 a.m. Wait, crushed my what? No time for questions. The path to Yui starts now. As All Might laughed, a hacking, bloody cough of a laugh, Izuku clutched the coin tight. He wasn't quirkless anymore. He was a ranger. The grid is not a weapon, young Midoriya. It is a river. The waves of Dagoba Municipal Beach crashed against the shore, carrying with them the refuse of a wasteful society. Tires, broken microwaves, and driftwood bobbed in the gray surf. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon, casting long, mournful shadows across the trash heaps. Izuku Midoriya stood waist-deep in the water, shivering. But he wasn't shivering from the cold. He was vibrating. Focus! All Might's voice boomed from atop a rusted refrigerator pile. The coin responds to your biorhythm. If your heart rate spikes from panic, the connection severs. You must be calm like the surface of a lake, yet furious like the storm beneath. That's contradictory. Izuku gritted out. He held the gold coin between his palms in a prayer position. He wasn't trying to crush it. He was trying to listen to it. Since the sludge incident 2 weeks ago, the coin had been dormant, a cold piece of metal in his pocket. But whenever he closed his eyes and focused on the memory of the Green Ranger, the power, the speed, the unyielding durability, the coin would grow warm. A green spark jumped from his knuckles. There. All Might pointed. Hold that sensation. Don't let it explode. Channel it. Izuku took a breath, tasting the salt spray. He visualized the energy traveling up his arms, into his shoulders, and settling in his core. He didn't need to transform. He just needed to tap into the reservoir. He stepped forward and thrust a palm against the water. He didn't touch the water physically. The air pressure ahead of his hand moved. Krak. A column of water 10 feet high erupted from the surface, spraying mist into the morning air. It wasn't the strength of a muscle. It was a kinetic discharge, like a static shock amplified 1,000 times. Izuku collapsed into the surf, gasping. The coin cooled instantly. Excellent! All Might leaped down, landing with a soft thud that belied his massive frame. You accessed the grid for 0.4 seconds without the suit manifesting. That is progress. Izuku dragged himself onto the sand, wringing out his shirt. It feels heavy, All Might. It's not like how you describe One for All. You say your power is like a torch being passed. This feels like opening a door to a room that's already on fire. All Might transformed into his skeletal form with a puff of steam, handing Izuku a towel. A poignant analogy. The Morphin grid is ancient energy. It's chaotic. My friend David is flying in from Island tonight. We need to stabilize that connection before the entrance exam. David Shield? Izuku's eyes widened, his Fanba brain overriding his exhaustion. The scientist who built your costumes during the Silver Age? He's coming here? He is the only man I trust with technology, this alien, All Might said, looking at the coin in Izuku's hand. If you go into the UA exam and that energy flares out of control, you won't just fail. You could level a city block. Or worse, turn yourself into a pile of ash. Izuku swallowed hard, looking at the dragon engraved on the gold. Right. No pressure. The warehouse, 3 days later. The meeting place wasn't UA, but a nondescript warehouse in the industrial district of Muzurifu. Inside, however, it looked like a high-tech bunker. Holographic displays floated in the air, and a portable fabrication unit hummed in the corner. Standing over a workbench was a man with glasses and sandy brown hair, looking at a monitor with intense fascination. Incredible, David Shield muttered, adjusting his spectacles. Toshi, where did you say you found this? An archaeological dig in the Nevada desert, All Might replied, leaning against a crate. It was buried in a strata layer that predates known civilization by at least 10,000 years. David picked up the coin with a pair of tweezers. The metallurgy is impossible. It's an alloy of gold and an unknown element that acts as a room temperature superconductor. And the energy signature, it's constant. It's not generating power, it's receiving it. Like a radio. Izuku sat on a stool, feeling out of place among the titans of heroism and science. Receiving it from where? David turned to him, a kind smile on his face. That's the question, isn't it, Midoriya? Toshi tells me you managed to morph during the sludge incident. The suit you described, the helmet, the spandex, it's actually a hard light construct. Matter created from energy. David walked over to the fabrication unit. The problem is the human body. We aren't evolved to channel this kind of cosmic frequency. That's why you passed out. That's why the suit destabilized. You're trying to drink from a fire hose with a straw. So I can't use it? Izuku asked, his heart sinking. Not without a regulator, David said. He pressed a button on the fab unit. A hiss of steam released, and a tray slid out. On the tray sat a device. It was rectangular, made of gunmetal gray and gold plating. In the center was a circular aperture perfectly sized for the coin. It looked chunky, retro, yet undeniably advanced. It was designed to be worn on a belt. I call it the Morpher, David announced proudly. It acts as a surge protector and a focusing lens. You insert the power coin here. He pointed to the center. And the device handles the energy conversion. It will stabilize the suit and reduce the strain on your body by 70%. Izuku reached out and touched the cold metal. A morpher. It also has a disguise mode, David added, tapping the side. The device shimmered and shrunk slightly, looking like a standard, albeit bulky, utility belt buckle. To the naked eye, it's just a piece of support gear. Yui allows support items during the exam if they are registered. We've registered this as a bioenergy capacitor. A capacitor? All Might raised an eyebrow. It sounds fancy enough to fool the judges, David winked. But Midoriya, listen to me. This device has a safety limit. If the coin starts glowing red, you have to power down. The grid is volatile. If you push it too far, the morpher will eject the coin to save your life. Which means you'll demorph instantly, leaving you defenseless. Izuku took the device. It felt solid. He pulled the coin from his pocket and hovered it over the slot. The coin seemed to magnetically pull toward the device. Don't insert it yet, David warned. Not until you need it. The connection creates a subspace pocket for the suit. It's loud. Izuku nodded, clipping the device to his belt. Thank you, Mr. Shield. I won't let you down. Don't worry about me, David said softly, glancing at All Might. Just survive the exam. Being a hero is dangerous work, even with the power of the stars in your pocket. 10 months later, the day of the exam, the entrance to UA High was daunting. The massive glass structure gleamed in the sunlight, a fortress of dreams. Hundreds of students were streaming in, their quirks on display, feathers, horns, floating limbs. Izuku stood at the gate, trembling. He had spent the last 10 months in hell. All Might's training regimen had been brutal. He had cleaned the beach, yes, to build the physical stamina required to pilot the ranger form, but he had also spent hours in meditation, learning to clear his mind. The grid required focus. It required a specific state of mind, a balance of calm and explosive intent. He wore a simple green tracksuit. Around his waist was the Morpher, disguised as a silver buckle. Move it, Deku. Izuku froze. Katsuki Bakugo walked past him, hands in his pockets. He didn't look at Izuku. He didn't scream or blast him. Since the sludge incident, Bakugo had been quiet. He had seen the Green Ranger. He knew Izuku had something. And that unknown variable seemed to bother him more than Izuku being quirkless ever did. Good luck, Kaken, Izuku said instinctively. Bakugo paused. Don't choke on your own spit. If you're gonna use that fake power of yours, don't embarrass me by failing. He walked away. Izuku let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He didn't kill me. That's a good start. He took a step forward, tripped on his own shoelace, and braced for impact with the pavement. He didn't hit. He was floating. Are you okay? Izuku looked up. A girl with a round face and brown bob-cut hair was smiling at him, her fingers touching his backpack. I stopped you with my quirk, she chirped, setting him upright. It's bad luck to trip before the exam, right? Wow. Izuku stammered, his face turning the color of his tracksuit. Thanks. I'm Ochako Uraraka, she said brightly. You look nervous. Me too. But we're gonna do great, right? Izuku Midoriya, he squeaked. Good luck, Midoriya. She waved and ran off toward the orientation hall. Izuku stood there stunned. I talked to a girl. Well, she talked to me. But still, he patted the Morpher on his waist. Calm. Focus. Don't let the heart rate spike. The orientation, the written exam was a blur. Izuku's obsessive note-taking over the years paid off. The academic portion was difficult but manageable. The real challenge was the practical. The auditorium was dark, illuminated only by the spotlight on Present Mike. The voice hero was screaming about Plus Ultra and explaining the rules of the urban combat simulation. 3 types of robots. 1-pointer, 2-pointer, 3-pointer. Destroy them to gain points. Excuse me. A tall boy with glasses and engines in his calves stood up, chopping his hand through the air. The pamphlet says there are 4 types of villains. If this is an error, it is highly shameful for a top-tier institution like UA. He turned and pointed a stiff finger directly at Izuku. And you! The one with the curly hair. You've been muttering this entire time. It's distracting. If you're here on a field trip, you should leave. The spotlight hit Izuku. Hundreds of eyes turned to him. The shame was instant, hot and prickling. Sorry, Izuku whispered, clamping a hand over his mouth. Okay, examinee 7111. Present Mike waved the boy down. The fourth robot is a 0-pointer. It's an obstacle. Think of it like a thwomp in Mario. If you see it, run away. It's not worth any points. Izuku slumped in his seat. The boy with glasses sat down, looking satisfied. Focus, Izuku. Don't let them rattle you. You have the Morpher. You have the training. You have the coin. But Doubt, that old friend, was whispering in his ear. Is a belt buckle really enough to bridge the gap? Battle Center B. The simulation city was massive. A sprawling urban environment with concrete buildings, paved roads, and streetlights. A crowd of examinees stood at the heavy iron gates, stretching and psyching themselves up. Izuku stood at the back. He wore standard UA gym clothes now, but the Morpher was securely fastened to his waist. He checked the mechanism. The power coin was in his pocket, ready to be inserted. Hey, a voice sneered. Check out the plain-looking guy. Does he even have a quirk? I saw him holding a support item request form. Maybe he's got a gun or something? Good. Less competition for us. Izuku ignored them. He was scanning the crowd for Uraraka. He saw her near the front, taking deep breaths. He started to walk toward her, maybe to wish her luck. A hand chopped in front of him. It was the glasses boy. What are you doing? The boy asked sternly. She is trying to concentrate. Are you planning to sabotage her? No. I just... Izuku stammered. Start. Present Mick's voice blared from the towers. What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real battles. Run! The gates groaned open. The mass of students surged forward like a stampede. Dust kicked up, obscuring vision. Izuku was left behind for a split second, blinking. Right. Run! He sprinted into the city. The chaos began instantly. Explosions rocked the streets. A boy with a laser navel blasted a 1-pointer. Another student with motor legs kicked the head off a 2-pointer. Izuku turned a corner and froze. A 1-pointer, a unicycle-based robot with mechanical arms, rolled toward him. Target acquired. Okay. Just like the beach. Assess the threat. Izuku reached for his pocket. Should I morph? No. All Might said the grid energy drains stamina fast. If I morph now, I might time out before the end. I need to save it. He released the coin and grabbed a rusted metal pipe lying in the rubble of a destroyed building. Targeting. The robot lunged. Izuku didn't panic. He saw the shift in the robot's weight. He stepped to the left, pivoting on his heel. Wax on. Wax off. He swung the pipe. Not with superhuman strength, but with precise leverage. He jammed the pipe into the robot's wheel spokes. Crunch. The robot's momentum worked against it. It flipped forward, crashing face first into the concrete. Its red eye flickered and died. 1 point, Izuku panted. I did it. Without the suit, out of the way, a blast of sparkling laser fire incinerated the robot Izuku had just disabled. The French boy twinkled past. Merci for the distraction. Hey! That was my point! Izuku yelled, but the boy was gone. This pattern continued for 10 agonizing minutes. Every time Izuku found a robot, someone with a faster, flashier, long-range quirk destroyed it before he could get close. 6 minutes left. Present Mike announced. Izuku was sweating. He had 0 points. I can't believe it, he muttered, jogging down a side alley. I trained so hard. I have the ultimate power in my pocket. And I can't even use it because I'm too scared of wasting it. He turned onto the main avenue. It was a war zone. Smoke billowed from destroyed storefronts. Students were panting, counting their scores. I have 40, 32 here. Izuku's heart hammered against his ribs. 0. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail and All Might will be disappointed and Bakugo will laugh and rumble. The ground jumped. It wasn't a vibration. It was a localized earthquake. Windows in the nearby buildings shattered from the frequency. What the? A shadow fell over the street. A shadow that kept growing. From behind the skyscrapers, a hand the size of a bus smashed into the pavement, pulverizing a 3-story building instantly. The zero-pointer. It was titanic. A green behemoth of metal towering over the city, easily 20 stories high. Its red eyes glowed with the intensity of searchlights. Threat level, extreme, the robot boomed. Its voice shook the fillings in Izuku's teeth. The students froze. Then they screamed. Run! That's not an obstacle. That's a monster. Get out of here! The stampede reversed. The examinees fled in terror, pushing past Izuku. Even the glasses boy was sprinting away, his face pale. Izuku stood rooted to the spot. The sheer scale of the thing paralyzed him. Run. You have to run. It's worth 0 points. He turned to flee. Oh wow! The cry was faint, buried under the sound of crumbling masonry. Izuku stopped. He looked back. In the middle of the ruined street, caught under a massive slab of concrete that had fallen from a building, was the girl. Uraraka. She was struggling, her face contorted in pain. The rubble pinned her leg. She couldn't touch it to float it. The zero-pointer loomed over her. Its massive treads ground the asphalt to dust. It raised a fist, preparing to clear the debris, and her along with it. She's going to die. The thought was cold and absolute. The pros were watching, surely. They would stop it. But the robot was too close. They were too far. Izuku's hand went to his pocket. He felt the coin. It was burning hot. The grid is a river. You are the dam. Screw the dam, Izuku snarled. He turned and ran, not away from the danger. Toward it. Hey! Idiot! What are you doing? A student yelled. Izuku didn't hear them. His world narrowed down to the girl and the machine. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the gold coin. He sprinted, sliding on his knees to reach Uraraka. Midoriya? She gasped, tears in her eyes. Run away! Not happening! Izuku grabbed the slab. He pulled. It wouldn't budge. It weighed tons. The shadow of the robot's fist deepened. It was descending. Izuku looked up. The metal fist was a falling sky. He looked down at the morpher on his waist. David said it's loud, he muttered. He stood up, placing himself between Uraraka and the robot. He held the coin up to the sky. It caught the sunlight, flashing brilliantly. It's morphin time. He slammed the coin into the buckle. Click. Access granted. The sound was deafening. An electronic screech, like a dial-up modem mixed with a thunderclap, erupted from the device. Green lightning arced from the buckle. It wasn't just light, it was physical force. It blew the dust away in a perfect circle around Izuku. Dragonzord. The cry wasn't his, but it came from his throat. The transformation sequence. Time seemed to suspend. A grid of green laser light materialized around Izuku's body, scanning his geometry. Snap. Matter materialized. White diamond-shaped cuffs locked onto his wrists and ankles with the sound of hydraulic clamps. Hiss. Green fabric, a material that looked like spandex but shone with the luster of Kevlar, wove itself over his legs, his torso, his arms. Muscles he didn't have bulged beneath the suit, the grid supplying the mass. A golden shield materialized on his chest, a diamond shape gleaming in the center. Finally, the helmet. It formed from the neck up, green panels sliding into place. The mouthpiece locked in with a metallic clack. The visor, shaped like the roaring maw of a beast, sealed him in. The world turned green. A heads-up display, HUD, flickered to life inside the visor. System, online. Power level, 100%. Weapon, standby. The transformation took a fraction of a second in real time. The zero-pointer's fist slammed down. Boom. Dust mushroomed upward, engulfing the street. The shockwave knocked the fleeing students off their feet. He's dead, a student whispered. The dust began to settle. There was a crater in the street. In the center of the crater, holding his hands up, was the Green Ranger. He was catching the robot's fist. The pavement beneath Izuku's boots had shattered, creating a spiderweb of cracks. But Izuku hadn't moved an inch. His knees were bent, his gauntlets pressing against the massive metal fingers of the zero-pointer. What? Uraraka breathed, forgetting the pain in her leg. Inside the helmet, Izuku was gritting his teeth. The strain was immense. The HUD was flashing red warnings, external pressure critical. Muscle augmentation at 400%. Get off, Izuku roared. He shoved. Green sparks exploded from his gloves. With the sound of tearing metal, the 0-pointer's arm was thrown upward. The massive robot staggered back, off balance. Izuku turned to Uraraka. The faceplate was featureless, intimidating, but his voice came through the synthesizer calm and commanding. Are you injured? And my leg, she stammered. Izuku looked at the concrete slab. He reached down, grabbed the edge with one hand, and flipped it off her like it was made of styrofoam. Can you stand? I think so. Get to safety. Izuku turned back to the robot. The 0-pointer had regained its footing. It roared, steam venting from its joints. It began to charge its eye lasers. Threat detected. Eliminate. Izuku reached to his left hip. In a flash of golden particles, a holster appeared. He drew the dragon dagger. It was beautiful. A black hilt, a golden blade, and a peculiar flute-like design along the shaft. Use it, the grid whispered. Izuku didn't know how. He just let his body follow the instinct. He ran. He didn't run like a human. He moved with explosive velocity, a green blur streaking across the battlefield. He jumped. The suit's hydraulics hissed. Izuku soared 40 feet into the air, landing on the robot's knee joint. The robot swiped at him. Izuku backflipped, landing on the arm. He was running up the robot. Who is that? The glasses boy shouted from the safe zone. Is that a support item? No, that's impossible. In the observation room, the teachers were leaning forward. Is that a transformation quirk? Midnight asked. I don't see any biological shifting. It's armor, Cementos rumbled. But where did it come from? It appeared out of thin air. All Might sat in the back of the room, gripping his armrests so hard the fabric tore. Go, young Midoriya. Show them. Izuku reached the head of the 0-pointer. He stood on the metal casing, the wind whipping past his helmet. The robot tried to swat him like a fly. Dragon dagger! Izuku shouted. He energized the blade. Green lightning crackled along the golden edge, sounding like 1,000 chirping birds. He didn't slash the robot physically. He swung the dagger in a wide arc. A wave of green energy, shaped like a crescent moon, fired from the blade at point-blank range. Crash! The energy wave sliced through the robot's neck mechanism. Metal melted. Circuits fried. The massive head of the 0-pointer slid off its shoulders, crashing to the ground with an earth-shaking thud. The body stood for a moment, then toppled backward, exploding into a cloud of smoke and spare parts. Izuku landed gracefully on the street, adopting a crouched combat stance, the dagger held ready. Silence. Absolute silence filled the battle center. The dust swirled around the green-armored figure. 1 minute left. President Mick's voice cracked over the speakers. Izuku stood up slowly. He twirled the dagger, a move he had never practiced, and holstered it. Then, he fell over. Midoriya! The suit flickered. The green grid lines appeared again, and the armor dissolved. The morpher on his waist let out a sad worklunk and popped the coin out. Izuku caught it with a trembling hand before he hit the ground. He lay on his back, staring up at the blue sky. His body felt like lead. Every muscle fiber was screaming. I got 0 points, he whispered. Tears pricked his eyes. He had saved the girl. He had destroyed the giant robot. But the rules were clear. 0 points. Uraraka was limping toward him. The other students were slowly emerging from hiding, staring at him with a mix of fear and awe. Did you see that? He took down the 0-pointer in one hit. What kind of quirk is that? Recovery Girl arrived a few minutes later, pushing her way through the crowd. Make way! Injured students. She knelt beside Izuku. She scanned him. Exhaustion, she tutted. And severe muscle strain. But no broken bones. Unusual for a power type. She kissed his forehead. Here, some gummies. Rest now. Izuku chewed the gummies weakly. He looked for the coin. It was safe in his pocket. I failed, he thought as consciousness slipped away. I revealed the ranger power, and I didn't even pass the exam. 1 week later, the apartment was quiet. Inko Midoriya was pacing the hallway, wringing her hands. Izuku sat at the dining table. A fish dinner sat untouched in front of him. He had been despondent for days. He had told All Might about the exam. All Might had just laughed and said, "Wait for the letter, wait for the letter." Easy for him to say. He was the #1 hero. Izuku was just a kid who brought a Power Ranger suit to a robot fight and still lost. "Izuku?" His mom called softly. "The mail is here." She held up an envelope. It was heavy. It had the Yui seal on wax. Izuku took it. His hands were shaking. I'll take this to my room." He walked into his bedroom, a shrine to All Might. He sat at his desk, staring at the envelope. "Here goes nothing." He ripped it open. A small metal disc fell out. It clattered onto the desk and projected a hologram. "I am here." All Might's face appeared, projected in high definition. "All Might?" Izuku blinked. "Wait, is this from UA?" "Yes. I am here as a projection because I have come to this town to work at UA." All Might announced, striking a pose. "I know it's been a while, young Midoriya. You've been worrying, haven't you?" Izuku nodded at the hologram. "You faced the practical exam. Your written scores were excellent. But in the practical, you scored 0 villain points." Izuku put his head in his hands. "However," Izuku looked up, "a hero is not judged solely by the enemies he defeats, but by the lives he saves." The video cut away. It showed the footage from the exam. It showed Uraraka trapped. It showed the other students running. And it showed Izuku, a blur of green courage, running toward the danger. "This young woman came to us directly after the exam," All Might said. The video showed Uraraka standing in front of President Mike. The boy with the messy hair, the one who saved me, can I give him some of my points? He risked his life for me. Please!" Izuku's eyes watered. She wanted to share her points, All Might said, his voice soft. "But you don't need them. Because this is a hero course. And how can a hero course reject someone who saves others?" A scoreboard appeared on the hologram. Izuku Midoriya, villain points 0, rescue points 60, rescue points. All Might shouted. "They are given by a panel of judges. And for facing the 0-pointer head-on, risking your own safety to protect a comrade, you passed with flying colors. Total, 60 points. Come, young Midoriya." All Might reached his hand out toward the camera. "This is your hero academia." The hologram faded. Izuku sat in silence. The tears finally spilled over. He sobbed, clutching the morpher that sat on his desk. He did it. He was in the teacher's lounge UA High. While Izuku celebrated, a different conversation was happening at UA. Shota Aizawa, aka Eraserhead, sat in his sleeping bag, sipping a juice pouch. He was watching the replay of Izuku's fight with the 0-pointer on a tablet. "Nizu," Aizawa said, his voice tired. "I looked at this kid's file. Midoriya Izuku. Registered quirk, none." Principal Nizu sat at his desk, drinking tea. "Indeed. So," Aizawa paused the video at the moment the green armor materialized. "What is this?" He registered a support item called a bioenergy capacitor, but support items don't grant superhuman strength, speed, and durability of this magnitude. That suit took a hit from a multi-ton robot and didn't dent. "It is a curiosity," Nizu admitted, his black eyes twinkling. "All Might has vouched for him. He claims the boy has discovered a new method of energy manipulation utilizing ancient technology." "Tech," Aizawa scoffed. "If it's tech, it can break. If it's tech, he's relying on a crutch. If he loses that belt, he's just a civilian." "Perhaps," Nizu said. "But look at his face before the mask forms." Aizawa zoomed in. He saw the terror in Izuku's eyes. But he also saw the set of his jaw. The determination. "He was terrified," Nizu said. "But he moved when no one else did. Even the ones with powerful quirks ran. This boy ran toward death." Aizawa turned off the tablet. "He's irrational," Aizawa muttered. "He's going to get himself killed. If he relies too much on that toy, I'll expel him on the first day." "We shall see," Nizu smiled. "But I have a feeling, Aizawa, we are witnessing the start of something very different from the usual heroics. Somewhere in deep space, the moon was dark, not Earth's moon. A moon orbiting a dead planet in a distant sector of the galaxy. On the surface of this moon lay a palace made of twisted chrome and bone. Inside, a figure sat on a throne. He was skinless. Just exposed muscle and silver tubes pumping glowing red fluid through his body. His brain was visible beneath a metal visor shaped like a Z. Lord Zed. He held a staff with a Z-shaped tip. He was looking into a scrying pool, a swirling vortex of red energy. In the pool, he saw a green flash. He saw the destruction of a robot on a primitive planet called Earth. So, Zed rasped, his voice sounding like grinding stones. The grid has awoken on Earth. A servant, a creature made of gold with wings, Golder, kneeled before him. My lord? Has Zordon returned? No, Zed growled. Zordon is long dead. But his coins, one has been found. The dragon coin. Zed stood up. The red tubes pulsed, and where there is one coin, the others will surface. The grid seeks balance. It will choose champions. He tapped his staff on the floor. Prepare my vessel, Golder. And contact my old associate on Earth, the one who calls himself All for One. It seems our interests are finally aligning, Zed laughed. The sound echoed through the vacuum of space, a promise of pain. The Green Ranger has returned. And I will crush him. A hero is not defined by their tools, but by how they wield them when the tools break. The first day of UA High felt less like the start of a school year, and more like the beginning of a space shuttle launch. The pressure was atmospheric. The building itself, a towering H-shaped fortress of glass and steel, seemed to look down on the students, daring them to be worthy of its halls. Izuku Midoriya stood at the threshold of Class 1A, his hand hovering over the massive door handle. This is it, he thought, his heart thumping a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The hero course. The dream. He adjusted the belt around his waist. To the casual observer, it looked like a standard, slightly bulky utility belt with a large silver buckle. But Izuku could feel the hum. The Master Morpher, as David Shield had named it, was dormant, but the gold power coin sat inside, a sleeping dragon waiting to wake. Don't throw up. Don't throw up, Izuku whispered to himself. He pushed the door open. Get your feet off the desk. The shout greeted him instantly. Izuku froze. Tenya Ida, the glasses-wearing engine boy from the entrance exam, was chopping the air aggressively at Katsuki Bakugo. Don't you think that's rude to the UA upperclassmen who used these desks before us? Ida demanded, his voice echoing in the high ceilings. Bakugo scoffed, leaning back with his feet crossed on the wood. In a few years this desk will be famous because I sat in it. Who cares about the extras who came before? You are unbelievable. Ida adjusted his glasses, light reflecting off the lenses. Then, he spotted Izuku. Ah. You. Ida marched toward the door. The class fell silent. Izuku braced himself for a lecture about his muttering during the orientation. Instead, Ida bowed stiffly. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. I must apologize. I misjudged you during the exam. You perceived the true nature of the test, that saving others is the paramount duty of a hero. I was blind to it. No, it wasn't like that. Izuku waved his hands frantically. My body moved on its own. Hey! It's the plain-looking kid. Ochako Uraraka popped up behind Izuku, beaming. You passed. That punch was amazing. Or wait, was it a punch? It looked like you were wearing armor for a second, and then, poof! Armor? A boy with red, spiky hair asked, leaning over his desk. Like a transformation quirk? Something like that, Izuku mumbled, sweating. He glanced at Bakugo. Bakugo was staring at him. His red eyes weren't filled with their usual explosive rage, but a cold, calculating intensity. He was looking at Izuku's waist. At the belt. He knows, Izuku realized. He saw the armor in the alley. He saw it at the exam. He knows I didn't manifest a quirk naturally. If you're here to make friends, you can pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. Everyone looked down. A yellow sleeping bag, looking like a giant caterpillar, was inching into the room. A face peered out, tired, unshaven, with bloodshot eyes and messy black hair. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, the man said, unzipping the bag and stepping out. He wore a scruffy black outfit and a strange scarf made of gray cloth. Time is a limited resource. You lot aren't rational enough. He reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a gym uniform. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Put these on and meet me on the P grounds immediately. The P grounds. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, a sharp contrast to Aizawa's mood. The class of 20 students stood in a cluster, wearing the blue and white Jui tracksuits. A quirk apprehension test? The class chorused in confusion. But what about the entrance ceremony? Or the guidance counselor meeting? Uraraka asked. If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa drawled, turning his back to them. UA's selling point is freedom of style. That applies to the teachers as well. He turned his head, his dark hair falling over his eyes. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. You did all these in middle school, correct? But you were prohibited from using your quirks. He held up a ball. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. How far could you throw a softball in middle school? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk, Aizawa said, tossing him the ball. Anything goes, as long as you stay in the circle. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He stretched his arms, a sadistic grin spreading across his face. Day. He muttered. He wound up and threw. As the ball left his fingertips, he triggered an explosion. Die. Boom. The blast propelled the ball like a cannon shot. It soared through the air, leaving a trail of smoke, before vanishing into the distance. Aizawa held up a device. Beep. 705.2 meters. Whoa! 700 meters? Is he a monster? This looks fun. We can use our powers as much as we want. The atmosphere in the class shifted from nervousness to excitement. It was a playground. A chance to show off. Aizawa's expression darkened. Fun? He whispered. You have 3 years here to become heroes. Do you think you'll have fun when a villain is crushing your skull? When you're pulling bodies out of a landslide? He smiled. It was a terrifying expression that didn't reach his eyes. Right. In that case, let's make it interesting. The student who ranks last in total points will be judged to have no potential and will be instantly expelled. The silence was absolute. Expelled? Uraraka cried. But it's the first day. That's too unfair. Natural disasters are unfair, Aizawa countered. Villain attacks are unfair. The world is full of unfairness. Heroes are the ones who correct it. If you expected a friendly hangout, go home. Izuku swallowed hard. His throat felt like sandpaper. Last place gets expelled. He looked around. Everyone here had amazing abilities. Bakugo's explosions. Ida's engines. Uraraka's gravity. And him? He had the Morpher. But there was a catch. The Morpher wasn't a biological part of him. It ran on grid energy. And David's shield had been very specific. The capacitor needs recharge time. If you do a full morph for every test, you'll burn out the coin before you reach the final event. And if the coin overheats, the safety eject triggers, and you're just a quirkless kid in a tracksuit. He couldn't morph fully. He had to use passive channeling. I have to pulse the energy, Izuku thought, clutching the fabric of his pants. Just like at the beach. Send a jolt of green energy to my legs for the run. To my arms for the grip test. If I morph fully, Aizawa will see it's a suit. He might disqualify me for using gear instead of a quirk. Midoriya, Aizawa said, his eyes narrowing. You're muttering again. Sorry. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Ida and a girl with frog-like features, Tsuyu Ajiri, were first. Ida's engines roared, blue flames spitting from his calves. He crossed the line in 3.04 seconds. Like a fish in water, Tsuyu remarked, landing in 5.58 seconds. Izuku was up next against Bakugo. Don't cry when you lose, Deku, Bakugo hissed as they took their positions. On your mark. Focus, Izuku told himself. He closed his eyes for a microsecond. He visualized the coin in the buckle. He didn't turn the dial. He just pulled. A sensation like liquid lightning flooded his legs. It wasn't the warm, biological heat of a muscle flexing. It was the cold, Electric buzz of the grid. Green energy, route to lower body. Reinforce tendons. Increase fast twitch response. Start. Bakugo launched himself with explosions behind him, flying low to the ground. Izuku didn't fly. He ran. But his stride was unnatural. The ground cracked slightly under his toes with each step. He wasn't propelling himself with explosions. He was simply moving faster than a human should be able to. BD deep. The Morpher chirped quietly under his shirt. They crossed the line. 4.13 seconds, the robot announced for Bakugo. 4.85 seconds for Izuku. Izuku skidded to a halt, panting. The energy receded, leaving his legs feeling heavy and gelatinous. I kept up? Bakugo stared at him, eyes wide. In middle school, Izuku ran a 7-second dash. Now he was keeping pace with an explosion-propelled boost? What the hell did you do? Bakugo demanded, grabbing Izuku's collar. You don't have a speed quirk. You cheated. I didn't. Izuku gasped. I trained. Get back in line, Aizawa ordered, though his gaze lingered on Izuku's legs. He noticed a slight green static discharge fading from Izuku's sneakers. Not a physical mutation. An emitter type? No, the energy signature is strange. Test 2, grip strength. A tall boy with multiple arms, Shoji, squeezed the device. 540 kilograms. Wow. That's like a gorilla. Izuku took the device. He squeezed normally. 56 kilograms. Average. No. I need more. He tapped the morpher twice. A low hum vibrated through his skeleton. The Green Ranger strength, the power that could wrestle a giant robot, trickled into his forearm. The veins in his arm bulged, glowing faintly green under the skin. Crunch. The digital display shattered. The metal handle bent into a U-shape. Izuku held up the broken device. I think I broke it. Whoa! Kirishima grinned. Manly. You crushed the machine. Aizawa marked something on his clipboard. Careless control. Minus points for equipment damage. Izuku bowed frantically. I'm sorry. He looked at his hand. It was trembling. That burst took a lot out of him. The passive use was harder than the full suit because his human body had to bear the strain without the protective mesh of the Ranger armor. Test 3, standing long jump. This was the hardest to hide. To clear the sandbox, Izuku needed verticality. He crouched. Channel energy to quads. Release on impact. He jumped. For a second, a holographic image of the Green Ranger flickered over his body, a ghost of the suit. He soared in a perfect arc, clearing the sandbox entirely and landing gracefully on the grass beyond. Nice air, Ciro commented. Izuku checked the morpher. The coin was warm. Not hot yet, but getting there. I have to be careful. The ball throw is the big one. Test 5, ball throw. Uraraka stepped up. She touched the ball, made it weightless, and threw it. It floated up, and up, and up. Infinity, the machine read. The class cheered. Okay, Aizawa said, looking bored. Midoriya. You're up. Izuku walked to the circle. This was it. He was currently sitting in the middle of the pack. If he failed this, he could drop to the bottom. He held the ball. I can't just use passive strength for this. I need to channel a specific attack. The dragon dagger's energy wave, but through my arm. He took a deep breath. It's morph and T, no. No morph. Just power. He gripped the ball. He initiated the sequence in his mind. The morpher word audibly this time. Green sparks began to dance around his shoulders. The air pressure dropped slightly. Smash! Izuku yelled, channeling his inner all-might. He threw his arm forward. The ball left his hand. It traveled 5 meters. It hit the ground and rolled, coming to a pathetic stop at 46 meters. What? Izuku blinked. The energy. It was gone. Right at the moment of release, the power had vanished. The green sparks had snuffed out. He felt a wave of nausea. The connection to the grid had been severed abruptly. I erased your quirk. Izuku turned. Aizawa stood there. His scarf was floating around him like a living thing. His hair was standing on end. And his eyes, they were glowing red. That ridiculous entrance exam, Aizawa said, walking closer. You acted recklessly. You destroyed the zero-pointer, but you shattered your own stamina in the process. And now, I see you struggling to control even a fraction of that power. Aizawa stopped a foot away from Izuku. The intimidation was palpable. You can't become a hero with that kind of liability. What will you do when you save one person and become useless? Who will save you? Izuku trembled. I saw the reports, Aizawa continued. Registered as bioenergy capacitor. A support item to regulate an unstable power. But looking at you, it's not the power that's unstable. It's you. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Is it even a quirk? The question hung in the air. Izuku froze. He knows. He tried to erase it. Wait, if Aizawa tried to erase it, and the power cut out, did that mean it was a quirk? No. Izuku looked down at the morpher on his belt. The light on the buckle wasn't red, overheat. It was blinking yellow, interference. Aizawa's erasure quirk worked by shutting off the quirk factor in a person's DNA. It stopped the biological activation of power, but the morpher was technology. It was a machine channeling extra-dimensional energy. Why did it stop? Then, Izuku realized. Aizawa hadn't erased the power. He had erased Izuku's biorhythm. The morpher required a sync. It required Izuku's nervous system to be the conductor. Aizawa's glare had disrupted Izuku's body's ability to interface with the device. It wasn't that the grid was erased. It was that the antenna, Izuku, had been jammed. Give me the ball back, Aizawa said, his hair falling back down as he blinked. You have 2 tries left. Hurry up and get it over with. Izuku retrieved the ball. He returned to the circle. He thinks I'm a liability. He thinks I can't control it. He thinks I'm useless. Izuku looked at the morpher. He jammed the signal once. But the grid adapts. David said the grid is a river. If you block the river, it finds a new path. I'm not useless, Izuku whispered. He didn't try to force the power into his whole body this time. That was too easy to jam. He focused entirely on his right index finger. Concentrate. 1 point of contact. Bypass the nervous system sync and force a direct discharge. He wound up. Aizawa watched, his finger on the eye drops. He has 0 potential. If he tries to break his arm again like he did the robot, I'll stop him. Izuku threw. The motion was normal. Just a human throw. But at the very last microsecond, as the ball rolled off his fingertips, Izuku shouted in his mind, Dragon Strike. He flicked his finger. Bzzz crack. A sonic boom erupted from his hand. A concentrated beam of green energy blasted the ball from behind. It wasn't a biological push. It was like the ball had been hit by a railgun. The ball vanished into the stratosphere. A shockwave of wind blew Aizawa's hair back. Izuku stood there, his fingers smoking slightly. The morpher was hot against his stomach, but safe. Aizawa looked at the device. Beep. 705.3 meters. He beat Bakugo by 0.1 meters. Izuku turned to Aizawa. He clenched his fist. The one that wasn't broken, the one that was still strong. Tears pricked his eyes, but he smiled. A fierce, defiant smile. I can still move, sensei. Aizawa stared at him. For a moment, the teacher's face was unreadable. A mix of shock, confusion, and something else. Ho! Aizawa grinned. A creepy, wide grin. This kid. DKU. An explosion ripped through the silence. Bakugo was charging. His palms were popping with nitroglycerin. You bastard! Tell me how you did that. You don't have a quirk. Is that belt doing it? Are you cheating? He was fast. He was going to tackle Izuku. Izuku flinched, raising his arms. I have to morph. Suddenly, the scarf wrapped around Bakugo. It tightened instantly, binding his arms to his sides. Gah! What is this cloth? It's stiff! Bakugo yelled, struggling. It's a capture weapon made of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy, Aizawa muttered, holding the other end of the scarf. Stand down. Why? Bakugo roared. He's a fake. He's using support gear, and you're using wrist gauntlets in your hero costume design, aren't you? Aizawa countered coolly. Support items are part of a hero's arsenal if registered. Midoriya's equipment is registered with the principal. Aizawa pulled Bakugo closer, his eyes glowing red again. Besides, equipment is useless without the skill to use it. That throw required precise timing. If he had mistimed the discharge, he would have blown his hand off. He released Bakugo. We're wasting time. Next, Izuku let out a breath, his knees shaking. He looked at Bakugo. The blonde was seething, but he stayed back. The look in his eyes had shifted from contempt to pure, unadulterated rivalry. He's not looking down on me anymore, Izuku realized. He's looking at me like a threat. The results. The sun was setting by the time the test concluded. The class gathered around a holographic display Aizawa projected. Total scores, Aizawa said. It's a rational summary of your performance. Izuku closed his eyes. I did okay on the run. Failed the grip test technically. Aced the throw. Did okay on the jumps. He opened his eyes. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Katsuki Bakugo. 10. Izuku Midoriya. 20. Minoru Mineta. 10th? Izuku blinked. I'm in the middle? By the way, Aizawa said, turning off the projector. The expulsion was a lie. Huh? The class screamed. It was a logical ruse to draw out your maximum potential, Aizawa said deadpan. I knew it. Yaoyorozu sighed, clutching her chest. It was obviously a pedagogical technique. I didn't know. Izuku whispered, sliding to the ground in relief. However, Aizawa added, stopping as he walked away. He turned to look directly at Izuku. Midoriya. Come to the faculty office later. We need to discuss the limits of your device. He walked off. Izuku swallowed. The secret was safe-ish. But Aizawa wasn't fooled. He knew something was different about the bioenergy capacitor. The faculty office. The office was empty save for All Might and Aizawa. All Might was in his small form, sitting on a couch, coughing into a handkerchief. You were too hard on them, Aizawa-kun, All Might said. Expulsion on the first day? I didn't expel anyone, Aizawa muttered, sitting at his desk and putting drops in his eyes. Though I was tempted. He spun his chair around. That kid. Midoriya. What is he really? All Might stiffened. I told you. He was born quirkless, but he has a rare bioelectric compatibility with the shield device. It allows him to save the PR speech, Aizawa interrupted. I tried to erase him. All Might froze. When I looked at him, his quirk didn't disappear. The energy didn't vanish. The device simply lost sync with him. That means the power source isn't biological. It's external. It's not a quirk factor. Aizawa leaned forward. If it's a machine, it can be hacked. It can be stolen. It can break. You're putting a child on the front lines with a battery pack. It is more than a battery, All Might said, his voice dropping an octave. It is a legacy. Just like mine. Aizawa stared at the skeleton man. He respected All Might, even if he disagreed with his methods. Fine, Aizawa sighed. But warn him. If he relies on the suit to be a hero, he's going to die. He needs to train his body to be a weapon, with or without the green spandex. He knows, All Might smiled. Believe me, he knows. The hideout. While UA was settling into its routine, a dark bar in Kamino Ward was buzzing with activity. Tamura Shigaraki scratched his neck, watching the television. The news was replaying the sludge incident and the brief glimpse of the Green Ranger. Sensei, Shigaraki rasped. This bug? He's annoying. He's not a pro. He's a child. On the monitor, the screen was black, displaying only the audio waveform of All for One. He is a ranger, Tamura. The voice was smooth, cultured, and terrifying. An ancient enemy of my new associate. Associate? Shigaraki tilted his head. A section of the wall slid open. Walking into the bar was not a human. It was a creature made of gray clay, faceless and uniform. It moved with a jerky, unnatural rhythm. Behind it, a figure appeared on a separate monitor. A figure with a Z-visor. Greetings, successor of All for One, Lord Zed's voice growled. I gift you my soldiers. The putties. Clay dolls? Shigaraki scoffed. Kurojiri, get rid of it. The putty moved. Fast. It slammed its fist into the bar counter, shattering the wood. They are expendable, Zed explained. Relentless. And they do not trigger danger senses in the same way living intent does. All for One chuckled. Use them, Tamura. Test the defenses of UA High. We need to draw out All Might, and this Green Ranger. Zed wishes to reclaim his property. Shigaraki smiled beneath the hand covering his face. A game. I like games. Let's see if the Green Ranger breaks when we press continue. The secret meeting principal's office. It was late at night. Izuku sat in the oversized chair in Principal Nizu's office. All Might sat beside him. Nizu, the chimera creature, poured tea. Sugar, Midoriya? Two please, Izuku said, nervously adjusting his uniform. So, Nizu took a sip. Aizawa is suspicious, but he is rational. As long as you produce results, he will not pry too deeply into the origins of the Morpher. That's a relief, Izuku sighed. However, Nizu's expression turned serious. We have analyzed the energy readings from the entrance exam. The surge you created when you destroyed the zero-pointer, it sent a signal. A signal? To deep space, David Shield's voice chimed in. He was on a video call on Nizu's screen. Izuku, the Morphin grid isn't local. It's universal. By awakening the green coin, you've essentially lit a flare in a dark room. Things are going to come looking for it. Like villains? Izuku asked. Worse, All Might said. Monsters. Conquerors. Entities that predate quirks. Nizu placed his cup down. We cannot expect you to fight a war alone, Midoriya. The grid seeks balance. The green coin is powerful, but it is meant to be part of a set. Nizu opened a drawer. He pulled out a velvet box. He opened it. Inside sat 4 coins. Red. Blue. Pink. Black. They were dull, lifeless metal. These were recovered alongside the green coin, Nizu explained. But they are dormant. They have not responded to any pro-hero we have tested. Not Endeavor, not Best Jeanist, not Mirko. Why? Izuku asked. Because they are looking for specific traits, David said. Teenagers with attitude. Or, in our case, students with potential. The grid resonates with youth, with unwritten futures. All Might stood up. Young Midoriya. We are authorizing the formation of a specialized squad within Class 1A. You will be the leader. Me? Leader? Izuku squeaked. But Bakugo is stronger. And Ida is smarter, and yet you were the one who moved, All Might said firmly. The Green Ranger is the core. We need you to keep your eyes open. During your training, the grid will pull toward those who are compatible. When you feel the resonance, you must offer them the choice. Izuku looked at the coins. Red for the warrior, blue for the strategist, pink for the heart, black for the defender. I understand, Izuku said, taking the box. It felt heavy. He was holding the destiny of 4 of his classmates in his hands. Be careful, Midoriya, Nizu warned. Once they accept the coin, there is no going back. Their lives will belong to the fight. Izuku nodded. He stood up, bowing to the principal and his mentor. I won't let you down. I'll find them. As he walked out of the office, the hallway seemed longer than before. He wasn't just a student anymore. He wasn't just a ranger, he was a recruiter, and the war was coming to UA. Fanfiction title, Mighty Morphin Hero, The Gridless Wonder. The grid does not choose based on who is strongest. It chooses based on what is missing. The morning sun filtered through the windows of UA High, casting long, geometric shadows across the hallway. To any other student, it was just another Tuesday. To Izuku Midoriya, it felt like walking a tightrope over a volcano. He walked stiffly, his right hand subconsciously guarding the support item belt around his waist. But it wasn't the Master Morpher that was causing him distress today. It was the velvet box tucked deep inside his backpack. It was heavy. Not physically, it weighed no more than a few pounds, but metaphysically, it felt like carrying a neutron star. 4 coins, Izuku thought, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead. 4 lives I have to change. Since the meeting with Principal Nizu and All Might, the green energy within him had become restless. It wasn't the clean, electric hum he had felt at the beach. It was jagged. Spiky. It felt like a lonely radio signal screaming into the void, desperate for a reply. Midoriya, you are muttering again. Izuku jumped, nearly dropping his bag. Tenya Ida was walking beside him, his movements robotic and precise. Sorry, Ida-kun. Just thinking about hero basic training today. Indeed. Ida chopped the air. It is our first practical foundational class. I confess I am quite nervous. The curriculum at UA is rigorous. We must be prepared for anything. Ida's glasses caught the light. Blue, Izuku thought. Strategist. Intellect. Speed. He looked at Ida's calves, the engines gleaming. The blue coin in his bag gave a subtle thump against his spine. Hey, Deku! Uraraka caught up to them, pumping her fist. Ready for today? I heard All Might is teaching it. I'm so excited I could float away, literally, she beamed, her round face full of warmth and determination. Pink, Izuku's mind supplied. Heart. Gravity. Aerial superiority. The pink coin hummed. Then, there was the explosion. Get out of my way, extras. Katsuki Bakugo shouldered past them, radiating a heat that had nothing to do with the ambient temperature. He didn't look at Izuku. He stared straight ahead, his eyes focused on a horizon only he could see. Since the quirk apprehension test, where Izuku had thrown the ball over 700 meters, Bakugo had been terrifyingly quiet. Red, Izuku thought, a chill running down his spine. Leader. Warrior. Fire. The red coin didn't hum. It burned. It felt hot through the lining of the backpack, searing against Izuku's back like a brand. This is going to be a disaster, Izuku whispered. Hero basic training, the locker room. The locker room was a chaotic symphony of zippers, Velcro, and excited chatter. The boys of Class 1A were changing into their hero costumes for the first time. Man, I hope my costume looks cool, Kirishima said, spiking his red hair. I went for a manly hardening theme. Exposed chest to show off the toughness. Izuku glanced at Kirishima. The redhead was grinning, flexing his hardened skin. Black, Izuku thought. Defense. Strength. The shield. He opened his locker. His costume case was waiting. David's shield had sent it along with the Morpher. It wasn't the full Green Ranger suit, that was energy-based. This was a physical suit designed to be worn under the morph, or as a standalone stealth suit when the grid wasn't active. It was a sleek, dark green bodysuit with gold trim. It had lightweight armor plating on the chest and shins, and a utility belt that housed the Morpher perfectly. It looked tactical. Professional. Whoa, Midoriya! Kirishima whistled. That looks serious. Like special ops or something. It's functional, Izuku mumbled, pulling the suit on. It fit like a second skin. He felt the Morpher click into place at his waist. Then, he reached into his locker and pulled out the velvet box. He couldn't leave it here. It was too dangerous. If someone opened it. What's that? Mineta asked, squinting. Lunch? Support items? Izuku lied quickly, shoving the box into a specialized pouch on the back of his utility belt. Just extra batteries. He walked out of the locker room, the weight of the team pressing against his lower back. Ground Beta. I am here. All Might's voice boomed through the tunnel entrance. He marched out in his Silver Age costume, cape fluttering majestically. Coming through the door like a hero, the class cheered. They stood in a line, showing off their costumes. Ida looked like a knight in shining armor. Bakugo had massive grenade gauntlets. Uraraka looked like a space-age bubblegum astronaut. Looking good, embryos. All Might laughed, hands on his hips. You all look like heroes already. Now, shall we begin? He pulled out a small booklet. Today's lesson, Battle Trial. Indoor anti-personnel combat. Indoor? Tsuya asked. But villain fights usually happen outside. Statistically, yes, All Might explained. But the most heinous villains hide in the shadows. Inside buildings. For this trial, you will be split into heroes and villains. 2 on 2, the villains guard a nuclear weapon, the heroes must secure it. He held up a yellow box. Lots are drawn randomly. Izuku felt his stomach drop. Randomly? The grid doesn't do random. He watched as All Might drew the names. Team A, Heroes Izuku Midoriya Ochako Uraraka. Team D, Villains Katsuki Bakugo Tenya Ida. Izuku froze. The color drained from his face. It was the perfect storm. Ida, blue candidate. Uraraka, pink candidate. Bakugo, red candidate. And him, Green Ranger. The grid was orchestrating this. It had to be Team A versus Team D. All Might announced. Everyone else, head to the monitoring room. As the other students filed out, Bakugo stopped. He turned slowly to face Izuku. The grenade gauntlets on his arms clanked heavily. Deku, Bakugo growled. Don't hold back. If you use that cheap trick with the finger flick, I'll crush you. I won't, Izuku said, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. He touched the morpher. I'm going to use everything I have. The setup. Inside the concrete building, Ida was pacing around the papier-mâché nuclear bomb. Bakugo-kun. Ida barked. We must coordinate our defense. I suggest I patrol the upper level while you guard the door. My engines give me mobility in these corridors. Bakugo ignored him. He was staring at the wall, vibrating with pent-up aggression. He's coming, Bakugo whispered. The nerd is coming. Are you listening? Ida chopped his hand. This is a team exercise. We are villains. We must act with devious intent. Ida walked over to the bomb. He tapped it. Order. Structure. Defense. In Izuku's pouch, 3 floors down, the blue coin pulsed. A slow, rhythmic beat. Thump. Thump. I'm going to kill him, Bakugo snarled, walking out of the room. Wait. Where are you going? Abandoning the objective is poor strategy. Ida yelled. Strategy is for people who can't win by force. Bakugo slammed the door. The infiltration. Okay, Izuku whispered. He and Uraraka were sneaking through a second-floor window. Here's the plan. Kaken will come for me. He won't care about the bomb. He wants to prove he's better, so he's gonna leave Ida alone? Uraraka whispered back. Exactly. I'll draw Kaken away. You use your zero-gravity to sneak past and touch the weapon. Got it. Uraraka gave a thumbs up. Let's do this, partner. Partner. The pink coin in the pouch trilled. A high, sweet sound only Izuku could hear. They moved into the hallway. The lights were dim. The air smelled of concrete dust. Step. 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 Boom. The wall to their right exploded. Izuku didn't flinch. The grid had warned him a split second before the impact. A spider sense-like tingle at the base of his skull. He grabbed Uraraka and dove to the left. Whoa! Uraraka coughed, waving away the smoke. Bakugo emerged from the hole in the wall, dust falling from his blonde hair. He looked like a demon. Found you. He raised his right gauntlet. He didn't hesitate. He pulled the pin. Kaken, no! Inside a building? Izuku yelled. He'll dodge it. Bakugo screamed. BLAM. A massive explosion filled the corridor. Fire engulfed the space. In the monitoring room, the class screamed. He's gonna kill him. Kirishima shouted, gripping the railing. All Might, stop the match. All Might hesitated. His hand hovered over the microphone. Young Bakugo is reckless, but young Midoriya. In the smoke, a green light flashed. BD deep. The smoke cleared. Izuku stood in front of Uraraka. He hadn't fully morphed. But a translucent green energy shield, a honeycomb barrier, was hovering in front of his forearm. The dragon shield, partial manifestation. You blocked it? Bakugo's eyes widened. With that fake light show? It's not fake, Kaken, Izuku said, lowering his arm. The shield dissolved into pixels. Uraraka, go. Now. Uraraka didn't argue. She touched herself, floated, and kicked off the wall, soaring over Bakugo's head. Don't ignore me. Bakugo swung at her. Izuku moved. He didn't use the Morpher's full power. He used the martial arts All Might had drilled into him, augmented by a low-level grid boost. He grabbed Bakugo's outstretched arm, used his momentum, and flipped him over his shoulder. Slam! Bakugo hit the concrete floor hard. Your opponent is me! Izuku shouted. Bakugo scrambled up, his face twisted in pure rage. But deep down, beneath the anger, there was shock. He read my move. He actually fought back. The red coin in Izuku's pouch suddenly grew incredibly hot. It wasn't reacting to Bakugo's anger. It was reacting to his drive. The sheer, unadulterated will to be the best. The grid respected power. It respected fire. Die. Bakugo launched himself again, using explosions to fly. Izuku tapped the Morpher. Level 2 output. Green lightning crackled around Izuku's limbs. He met Bakugo's charge head-on. They clashed in the center of the hallway. Explosion versus energy. Orange versus green. Boom! Crack! Why won't you use your weapon? Bakugo screamed, blasting Izuku in the ribs. The green bodysuit absorbed the impact, but Izuku grunted in pain. Pull out that dagger. Fight me for real. I don't need a dagger to stop you. Izuku retorted. He ducked a right hook and landed a solid punch to Bakugo's gut. You're looking at me, but you're not seeing the bigger picture. That's why you'll lose. Shut up. The stronghold. On the 5th floor, Ida was getting into character. I am the embodiment of evil, he announced to the empty room. I have secured the weapon. No hero shall pass. He cleared the room of all loose objects. He analyzed the entry points. He was thorough. He was disciplined. Order. Logic. Duty. Downstairs, the blue coin synchronized with Ida's heartbeat. It stopped pulsing and began to glow a steady, cool sapphire light. Uraraka-kun has arrived, Ida muttered, hearing the soft thump of her landing in the corridor. I am ready. Uraraka peeked around the corner. Oh wow, he looks intense. I see you, hero. Ida pointed. You cannot defeat my engine speed. He revved his engines. Vroom. Uraraka gulped. Okay. Izuku is counting on me. I have to do this, she charged. Ida moved faster. He zipped around the bomb, creating a wall of wind. Useless. I have anticipated your gravity quirk. I have cleared the floor so you have no ammo. Uraraka bit her lip. He's right. There's no debris. I can't fight him physically. She looked at the ceiling. If I can't move the debris, I'll make my own. She touched the support pillar next to her. Home run comet! She grasped the pillar. With a scream of effort, she strained her muscles. It wasn't just gravity reduction. It was hysterical strength born of desperation. I want to win. I want to be like Deku, the pink coin shrieked. A burst of pink energy, invisible to the naked eye but felt by the morphin grid, shot from the pouch downstairs, through the ceiling, and wrapped around Uraraka. For a split second, she felt lighter than air. She ripped a chunk of the pillar loose and swung it like a bat. What? Ida gasped. She hit the debris toward Ida. He dodged, but the distraction was enough. Release. She canceled gravity on herself, dropping toward the bomb. Not so fast. Ida engaged his reciprocators. He dashed to intercept. The climax. Downstairs, the building shook. Bakugo and Izuku were locked in a stalemate. Bakugo was panting, bruised. Izuku's bodysuit was scorched. They're making a move upstairs, Izuku gasped. I have to end this. You're not going anywhere. Bakugo raised his gauntlet again. He aimed it not at Izuku, but at the ceiling. If I bring the whole building down, you lose. Are you insane? Bakugo pulled the pin. Izuku's eyes widened. He's going to bury us. Master Morpher, overdrive. Izuku didn't think. He slammed his hand onto the buckle. Dragonzord power! The transformation was partial but intense. The Green Ranger helmet formed instantly. The chest shield materialized. Izuku jumped. He didn't jump away. He jumped onto Bakugo. As the explosion fired, Izuku wrapped his arms around Bakugo, deploying the dragon shield to cover both of them. Boom! The blast was contained. The energy washed over Izuku's back, scorching the shield, but the structural integrity of the building, and Bakugo, was saved. Upstairs, the floor rocked, throwing Ida off balance. Uraraka dove. She hugged the bomb. Captured. The buzzer sounded. Hero team wins. All Might's voice crackled over the speakers. The smoke cleared in the hallway. Izuku released Bakugo. The helmet dissolved into green mist. Izuku collapsed to his knees, coughing. Bakugo stood there, frozen. He looked at his gauntlet. He looked at the scorch marks on Izuku's back, marks that were rapidly fading as the residual grid energy healed him. You! Bakugo's voice trembled. You saved me? From my own attack? You would have brought the roof down, Izuku wheezed. Idiot, Bakugo stared. His hands shook. The humiliation was total. He hadn't just lost, he had been protected by the person he considered weakest. In Izuku's pouch, the red coin was vibrating so hard it was almost humming a low growl. It had found its warrior. A warrior who needed discipline, yes, but a warrior with unmatched firepower. The aftermath, monitoring room. The class was silent as Team A and Team D returned. Ida looked dejected. Uraraka was exhausted but grinning. Bakugo was a statue of repressed fury. Izuku looked like he'd gone 10 rounds with the truck. Well done! All Might said, giving a thumbs up. MVP of this match is young Ida, eh? Ida blinked. Me? Yes. Because you were the only one who truly adapted to the scenario without risking catastrophic collateral damage. Yayorozu raised her hand to elaborate, giving a detailed breakdown. While she spoke, Izuku moved to the back of the room. He felt the pouch. The coins were going crazy. Kirishima walked up to him. Dude! Kirishima slapped Izuku on the back. That was manly as hell. Taking that explosion to save Bakugo? That's some hardcore chivalry right there. Izuku looked at Kirishima. The redhead's eyes were shining with genuine admiration. Black. The black coin inside the box suddenly slammed against the lid. It resonated with Kirishima's unbreakable spirit. The desire to protect. The hardness of will. Kirishima-kun, Izuku whispered. Can I talk to you later? With Uraraka and Ida? Sure? Kirishima tilted his head. Is this a secret club? Something like that. Izuku glanced at Bakugo, who was sulking in the corner. This is going to be the hard part. The secret meeting. 2 hours later. School had ended. Izuku had sent a text to the 4 candidates. Please meet me in conference room 3B. Urgent. Midoriya. He stood at the head of the table. The velvet box was in front of him. All Might stood in the corner, deflated in his skeletal form, watching silently. The door opened. Uraraka walked in, limping slightly. Deku? Is everything okay? Ida followed. Midoriya-kun, does this pertain to our class representative duties? Oh wait, we haven't elected those yet. Kirishima entered next. Yo! What's the haps? They looked around. Where's Bakugo? Kirishima asked. I'm here. Bakugo leaned against the door frame, scowling. He hadn't changed out of his hero costume, though he had removed the gauntlets. Make it quick, nerd. I have training to do. Izuku took a deep breath. I need to tell you guys the truth about my power. The room went still. You all saw what happened today, Izuku started. The armor. The energy. It's not a quirk. It's ancient technology. Tech? Ida adjusted his glasses. Like a support item? More like a cosmic artifact, All Might interjected. Young Midoriya has been chosen by the Morphin Grid. A power source that predates quirks. Izuku opened the box. The 4 coins glinted in the fluorescent light. Red. Blue. Pink. Black. The grid isn't just one person, Izuku said, his voice shaking. It's a team. A squadron. And the coins have chosen you. He pointed to Uraraka, the pink coin. It reacted to your desire to lift others up. To your gravity. He pointed to Ida, the blue coin. It reacted to your discipline. Your speed. Your intellect. He pointed to Kirishima, the black coin. It reacted to your toughness. Your spirit of protection. Kirishima's eyes went wide. Me? Seriously? A cosmic power wants me? And? Izuku turned to Bakugo. Bakugo was staring at the red coin. It was carved with the image of a Tyrannosaurus. The red coin, Izuku said softly. It chose you, Kaken. Why? Bakugo asked, his voice low and dangerous. Because you have the drive, Izuku said. Because you want to win more than anyone else. The Red Ranger is the vanguard. The tip of the spear. The leader in battle, Bakugo scoffed. He walked over to the table and looked down at the coin. So let me get this straight, Bakugo said. You got a lucky handout from some space rock. And now you're handing out leftovers to us? You want me to be on your team? To follow your orders? It's not my team, Izuku said. It's our team. Don't screw with me. Bakugo slammed his hand on the table. The coins rattled. I don't play nicely with others. Especially not with you. I'm going to be number one on my own strength, not with some borrowed suit. He turned to leave. Bakugo! Kirishima shouted. Wait! Don't you get it? This is huge. We could be real heroes. A super team. I don't do teams, Bakugo spat. He reached for the door handle. Roar. The sound didn't come from a person. It came from the box. The red coin flew into the air. It hovered, spinning violently, glowing with an angry crimson light. It shot across the room and slammed itself against the door, blocking Bakugo's exit. What the hell? Bakugo jumped back. The coin pulsed. Thump. 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 It sounded like a predator's heartbeat. It won't let you leave, All Might said, stepping forward. The grid is stubborn, young Bakugo. It has tasted your potential. It will not accept a refusal easily. Get out of my way! Bakugo blasted the coin with an explosion. Boom! The smoke cleared. The coin was untouched. It glowed brighter, feeding off the explosive energy. It likes the explosions, Izuku realized. Kaken, it's not asking you to change who you are. It wants you because of who you are. It wants your anger. It wants your fire. But it needs you to aim it. Bakugo stared at the floating coin. It was mocking him. Challenging him. If you walk away, Izuku said, finding a sudden surge of courage, you're running from a challenge. You're admitting you can't handle the power. Bakugo froze. His eye twitched. I never run, Bakugo hissed. He reached out and snatched the burning coin from the air. It sizzled against his palm. He didn't flinch. He squeezed it tight. Fine, Bakugo growled, turning to face Izuku. I'll take your stupid power. I'll wear your stupid suit. But get one thing straight, Deku. He pointed a finger at Izuku's chest. I'm the Red Ranger? Fine. That means I'm the star. You just try to keep up. Izuku exhaled, his knees nearly giving out. I wouldn't have it any other way. The tension broke. Kirishima grabbed the black coin. Hell yeah! Mastodon power! He felt a surge of strength harden his skin. Whoa! This feels amazing. Uraraka gingerly picked up the pink coin. Pterodactyl. She smiled. It feels light. Like a feather. Ida adjusted his glasses and picked up the blue coin. Triceratops. A defensive herbivore known for its charging capability. I accept this responsibility. I shall ensure this team operates with maximum efficiency. Excellent. All Might beamed. Welcome to the Morphin Grid, young heroes. But be warned, accepting the coin is only the first step. He pressed a button on a remote. A holographic projection of 5 giant mechanical beasts appeared in the air. David Shield is currently constructing the Zords. Support vehicles compatible with your grid signatures. But until they are ready, you are the only line of defense. Defense against what? Uraraka asked. As if on cue, the alarms in the school didn't ring, but Izuku's Morpher did. BD deep. Rangers, Izuku said, looking at his belt. We have a signal. It's faint, but it's close. A villain? Kirishima cracked his knuckles. No, Izuku said, looking at the map on his buckle's small display. It's just outside the school grounds. It's a patroller? Putty patroller, All Might corrected. Foot soldiers of the enemy. They are likely scouting. Well? Bakugo grinned, a feral, terrifying expression. Let's go test out these new toys. Izuku looked at his team. Bakugo red, Ida blue, Uraraka pink, Kirishima black, and him green. Right, Izuku nodded. It's morphin' time. The first morph, training room. Wait! All Might shouted. You can't just run out there. You haven't synchronized. How do we do it? Kirishima asked. You need morphers, Izuku realized. I only have the master morpher. David sent prototypes, All Might said, kicking open a crate under the table. Inside were 4 wrist-mounted devices. They were silver, simpler than Izuku's buckle, but sleek. Wrist morphers, All Might explained. Insert the coin. Cross your wrists. Call the name of your beast. They strapped them on. Let's try it, Izuku said. Together, they stood in a line. Bakugo, this is stupid. Kirishima, This is awesome. Ready? Izuku called out. 1, 2, 3. It's morphin time, Mastodon. Kirishima, black energy surged, heavy and solid like rock. Pterodactyl. Uraraka, pink wind whipped through the room, lifting papers into the air. Triceratops. Ida, blue lightning arced, grounding itself in precise geometric patterns. Tyrannosaurus. Bakugo, a massive roar of red fire erupted, shaking the walls. Dragonzord. Izuku, green energy bound them together. Flash. The light blinded All Might for a second. When it faded, 5 figures stood in the room. They wore spandex suits with white diamonds across the chest. Helmets with sculpted mouthpieces. Holsters at their hips. Whoa! Kirishima looked at his black-gloved hands. I feel unbreakable. My vision. Ida tapped his blue helmet. I have a tactical HUD. I can see wind velocity and structural stress points. I'm flying. Uraraka hovered 2 feet off the ground, her pink skirt fluttering. Without even touching myself, Bakugo looked at his hands. He felt the raw power coursing through the red suit. It was amplification. It took his explosions and refined them. He summoned his weapon. The power sword materialized in his hand. Not bad, Bakugo muttered, swinging the blade. The air whistled. Izuku stood in the center, the gold shield on his chest glinting. Rangers, Izuku said, feeling the word fit right in his mouth. Let's go.